Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Beth Strausser, and I work in the policy office at the National Science Foundation. It's my pleasure to welcome you to another session of the NSF Virtual Grants Conference. And I am now pleased to announce this session, which will cover programs in the Directorate for Biological Sciences. And this session will be presented by Colette St. Mary. So over to you, Colette.
Hello. I'm Colette St. Mary. I'm a program director in the Integrative Organismal Systems Division within the Directorate. And I'm joined today by colleagues from the other bio divisions, and I'll introduce them as we finish this short introduction to the Directorate rather. So my agenda for today is to give you a brief overview of the Directorate, talk a little bit about some programs that we're offering and our structure so that you can more easily find out more information. And then I'm going to show you a few sources of additional information and easy ways to reach out to us if you have questions. Note, you can begin to ask questions through the Q&A as this introduction is rolling, and we'll look forward to answering them live once this is completed. So the Directorate for Biological Sciences has the mission to enable discoveries for understanding life, advancing the frontiers of biological knowledge, and providing a theoretical basis for predictions within complex, dynamic living systems through an integration of scientific principles. If we look at our Directorate overall, we have a budget of approximately $831 million. We evaluate over 4,000 proposals a year and make over 1,000 awards. Those awards are serving over 400 institutions and a community of researchers at all different levels of over 14,000 people. We also support infrastructure to enable the biological sciences, such as the NEON sites. 81 NEON sites are up and running, providing publicly available data, as well as our LTER network of sites, including 28 long-term research sites in different biomes across the US and across the world. We also have a focus on broadening participation, and I'm going to feature some of those new activities later on in this presentation. Overall, we cross the entire range of biological scales in our support. The Division of Molecular and Cellular Biosciences is looking at the molecular level up through the organism. Integrative Organismal Systems is likewise interested in the genetic underpinnings of organismal traits and looking across the physiology and development of the organisms and then how they interact with their environment and other organisms. The Division of Environmental Biology is operating at the even larger scale, taking its focus from approximately the population level up to the whole biosphere. We are also supported through the work of the Division of Biological Infrastructure, and it supports resources and development for human capital as well as research infrastructure. Bio has 5 priority areas at the moment. The first is emerging infectious disease. This will come as no surprise to you, but we recognize how little we fully understand about the potential for new diseases to emerge in biological systems. And so this focus area, priority area, encapsulates all aspects of the basic biology of emerging infectious diseases. We're also focused on life on the warming planet and the challenges that poses to organisms and their responses to the warming environment and the more dramatic environment that we're experiencing. We have a focus on biotechnology to advance the US bioeconomy, recognizing that biological processes are central to our economy, our food resources, our technological innovation to address the challenges that we're facing in our society. This focus area has spawned numerous special programs, and I'm going to feature at least a couple of them coming up. The Directorate continues to be interested in integrative research across all scales of biological process as biology integrates with engineering, math, computer science, etc. And we also have a focus on broadening participation to draw in the missing millions to the Biological Directorate. So let me give you a little bit more information about our 4 divisions. The first, molecular and cellular biosciences, it consists of 4 core programs, standing programs that are inviting PI submitted research, cellular dynamics and function, molecular biophysics, genetic mechanisms, and systems and synthetic biology. Each of these clusters is described in more detail on the MCB website, so please navigate there if you'd like to learn more. And this will be true as I move through all of the divisions. MCB is offering numerous special programs at the moment, and these programs are largely in recognition of opportunities that might stem from synthetic biology to address challenges and to foster new development in biotechnology. So for instance, synthetic communities, building synthetic microbial communities for biology, mitigating climate change, sustainability, and biotechnology, designing synthetic cells beyond the bounds of evolution, reproducible cells and organelles via directed differentiation, otherwise known as RECODE. These 2 you can learn more about on the MCB website. iOS is similarly structured. We have 4 research clusters and a 5th plant genome research program. Our clusters are behavioral systems, neural systems, which offers 3 programs, developmental systems, which also offers 3 programs, and physiological and structural systems, which offers 4 programs, including the Plant Biotic Interactions program, which is a collaboration with USDA NIFA. We have fewer special programs, but are very focused on their success. We've been offering for some time the Enabling Discovery Through Genomics program, otherwise known as EDGE. And this program is now in collaboration with NIH. We've recently developed Organismal Response to Climate Change. We've offered a DCL in organismal systems and infection biology. And we've also offered a DCL in bio-inspired design together with engineering. Division of Environmental Biology has 4 clusters as well under 2 broad subject areas, ecology and evolution. In ecology, they have ecosystem sciences and population and community ecology. and on the evolution side, evolutionary processes, as well as systematics and biodiversity science. Special programs offered in the Division of Environmental Biology include Biodiversity on the Changing Planet, the longstanding Ecology and Evolution of Infectious Disease program, long-term research in environmental biology, also known as LTREB, macro systems for neon-enabled science, and opportunities to promote understanding through synthesis. The Division of Biological Infrastructure is divided into 3 broad clusters supporting human resources, and this is home to many well-known programs such as the postdoctoral fellowships, research fellowships in biology, the REU SITE program, and more recently, new programs such as building research capacity for new faculty in biology, BRC Bio, research and mentoring for post-baccalaureates in biological sciences called RAMP, research experiences for teacher sites, and a new effort leading cultural change through professional societies. I'll talk a little bit more about that one later on. They also support research resources. This is infrastructure to enable biological research. They have 3 overarching tracks: innovation, capacity, and sustaining support for infrastructure. They also support a major research instrumentation program. Finally, they have a centers, facilities, and additional research infrastructure cluster. And this is the cluster that supports large-scale infrastructure, including the Biology Integration Institutes, the Center for Advancement of Synthesis of Open Environmental Data and Sciences, Management and Operations of NEON, and mid-scale research infrastructure. Always a question that's important for us to talk about in bio, and that is bio and biomedical research. What isn't funded? Biological research on mechanisms of disease in humans, including on the etiology, diagnosis, or treatment of disease or disorders, is normally not supported because that is the purview of NIH. Biological research to develop animal models of such conditions, or the development or testing of procedures for their treatment, this is also not supported in general by the Directorate. However, research with etiology, diagnosis, or treatment-related goals that advances knowledge in engineering, mathematical, physical, computer, or information sciences is eligible for support. Bioengineering and assistive information technology research to aid persons with disabilities is also eligible for support. The Directorate core programs operate on a no deadline solicitation, which means that proposals are accepted at any time. There's no limit on the number of proposals, non-overlapping proposals, of course, that a PI can submit. And panels and review overall are happening over the course of the year with an average time to decision of approximately 6 months, just as before we went to no deadline. It's noteworthy that some special programs do have deadlines. So check the solicitation you intend to submit to carefully. You note here that this EDGE solicitation pictured has an ongoing deadline each year. There's also a blog post you might be interested in on the MCB blog page. You can search by when should I submit my proposal, and they have a nice summary of that. The short answer is submit it when it is in the best shape possible. Continuing with my agenda, I want to talk a little bit about cross-bio or cross-NSF and interagency programs. And really, I'm only going to feature these slightly because there are too many to go into in depth. I first want to say that Bio is very interested in supporting integrative research, and our integrative research in biology program known as IntBio has now moved into a track in the core bio solicitations. The structure of those proposals and the expectation of their review is unchanged from the freestanding IntBio program. Fundamentally, it supports integrative biological research spanning subdisciplines. It can incorporate cutting-edge methods, tools, and concepts, each intended to produce groundbreaking new biological discovery and understanding. This should be projects where the team, through their complementary expertise, can achieve some synergy and produce novel, holistic understanding of how biological systems function and interact across biological scales of organization. Asking about integrative research more broadly, we also recognize that a lot of our core programs receive quite integrative projects. So some of deciding where you should submit that integrative research has to do with the scope of the project. How big is it? So for instance, if you're a single investigator, then probably your project should go to the core programs. But no, if you have a collaborative team, you have to ask yourself, well, does the project sit within the core programs as you see them? Or maybe one or two core programs. We very often co-review projects that have aspects in different clusters. So some of these integrative projects with collaborators would still go to the core programs. But if they are larger in scope, for instance, if you have many investigators or you're looking across multiple systems and trying to gain some integrated understanding, then probably those projects should not go to the core, but should go to a special track or program, such as IntBio. So what I would say is if the scope of your project and team are sort of intermediate, maybe you have four or so researchers with different expertise, IntBio might be the home for you. If you're thinking even larger, if you're thinking about training in integrative sciences, then perhaps the Biology Integration Institutes is where your project would naturally lie. Definitely reach out to a program officer to discuss these alternatives with your project in mind. I'm taking this juncture just to advertise that there is a new solicitation out calling for preliminary proposals for an iOS Synthesis Center for Understanding Organismal Resilience. These should come from PIs or research teams, and fundamentally, these centers are intended to advance our ability to explain and predict organismal resiliency and plasticity in response to complex and dynamic environmental circumstance encountered over a lifespan through the synthesis of various data sets at multiple scales and levels. These synthesis centers are about synthesizing existing data. So if that's something you're interested in, please have a look. These preliminary proposals are due in January of 2024. Just featuring a few integrative programs, special programs, one in each of our divisions. I'll mention that the Biodiversity on a Changing Planet is a highly integrative program with collaborations with our counterparts in China, Brazil, and South Africa, which help us to support with this program projects that involve international collaboration. We support our side and they support researchers in their own countries. This is a program that has an annual deadline. The EDGE program, which I mentioned before, enabling discovery through genomic tools. This is supporting the development of tools and resources and testing hypotheses about genotype to phenotype in non-model systems. Again, a deadline. And a fairly new collaboration headed by MCB, a collaboration between NSF and DOE, ABF. This focuses on accelerating innovations in biomanufacturing approaches through collaboration between the NSF and the DOE BETO funded Agile Biofoundry. So that Agile Biofoundry offers the opportunity to use the design, build, test, learn capabilities that they have and develop testable prototypes to advance synthetic engineering biology. Next, I want to talk about our building capacity efforts and focus first on people. So first off, recognizing that all the sciences are needing to engage in some culture change to engage diverse participants, we've offered the solicitation Leading Cultural Change Through Professional Societies of Biology. And this is intended to support professional societies to facilitate cultural change in the biological sciences and advance diversity, equity, and inclusion at the scale of the biosciences. There are several tracks within this BioLeaps solicitation: an evaluation track, a design track, and an implementation track. We also are participating in the BioGeo Directorate pilot for safe and inclusive work environment plans. This pilot requires a 2-page supplemental document, which provides a brief description of the field setting and unique challenges for the team, steps that the research team plans to prepare their participants to go in the field, explains the communication processes to assure that everyone has free access to communication, and finally lays out the organizational mechanisms that can be used for reporting or responding to and resolving issues of harassment should they arise. This is intended to help address the ongoing challenge of harassment and non-inclusive research environments that have plagued field environments for many decades. All of the core solicitations in bio are participating, as well as numerous special programs. However, you need to read each solicitation carefully. If you're submitting to a solicitation, then follow the guidance for that solicitation. It's noteworthy that this supplemental doc is in lieu of the new AOR certification that there's a plan in place. in the case of programs submitting to the pilot. Bio also has an array of programs to support researchers throughout their professional career in biology, beginning with research experiences for K through 12 teachers, all the way through for STEM professionals, moving from mid-career into full professorship. Some of these programs have been longstanding and are NSF-wide, but I'm going to feature some of the ones that Bio has put forth to enrich this landscape. First, the research experiences for teachers, sites in the biological sciences. And this is very much analogous to the REU sites program, but targets cohorts of middle school teachers and high school teachers, or even community college faculty, to gain some research experiences that they can use to develop their science curriculum, their biological science curriculum. The RAMP program is another effort that Bio has taken to close the gaps in support for professional stages. So this is research and mentoring for post-baccalaureates in the biological sciences. It's supporting and creating networks of full-time research, mentoring, and training experiences for college graduates who have had few or no research or training opportunities during their undergraduate careers. And this is moving across fields of bio. We still offer our postdoctoral research fellowship in biology, and as you might have noted in Bio by the numbers, are supporting on average 140 postdocs at a time. These are for recent graduates with PhD, 3-year postdoctoral fellowships in any one of these topic areas: rules of life, plant genomics, and broadening participation. We've also established the Building Research Capacity of New Faculty in Biology program. This program is specifically targeting new assistant professors at institutions that are not among the most research intensive. In other words, non-R1 institutions. We're drawing these applications especially from minority serving institutions, predominantly undergraduate institutions, but also other universities and colleges that are not amongst the most research intensive institutions. This program has a proposal submission window annually in June. And finally, the mid-career advancement program, which Bio led in the origination of. This is a program intended to support scientists and engineers at the associate professor level or equivalent, and help them to make the transition to full professor, but also to assure that their research program continues to be vibrant through this challenging stage where often there are lots of new responsibilities in administration. Note also that Bio is participating along with GEO in a pilot extension of this mid-career advancement program, which offers the same opportunity to full professors or their equivalent at primarily undergraduate institutions. This supports the opportunity for a mentored research experience, the opportunity to try and learn new techniques, take a new tact with your research, and revitalize your research program moving forward. I also want to mention the infrastructure that bio supports, which is constantly providing new information available to our community for further analysis. The National Ecological Observatory Network, also known as NEON, has 81 field sites across 20 ecoclimatic regions, including Alaska, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. And it's producing numerous data products, but also numerous education and training opportunities for the use of their data. Furthermore, they have research support and assignable assets that can be used in the support of your own proposed work. The Long-Term Ecological Research Network, now over 40 years of sustained data collection at 28 sites. And this supports long-term data collection and analysis to appreciate large-scale phenomena. It trains a diverse assemblage of graduate students, undergraduates, and other professionals in the ecological sciences, and it provides substantial educational outreach through the LTER Schoolyard series and other efforts. Finally, how to learn more and get in touch with us. One easy way to always be on top of what's happening at the NSF is to sign up for NSF News in your inbox. If you're signed up for NSF News, you'll get notification of new solicitations, events such as webinars, quarterly newsletters, featured news solicitations or highlights. So do sign up to get information in your inbox. All 4 of our divisions actually offer blogs as well. So visit the blogs and learn more about the divisions, about submitting proposals, and announcements of upcoming virtual office hours, where each of us will make a short presentation on a topic and then answer questions for the community. There are lots of opportunities to learn more coming out of the bio Directorate. Don't be shy. So for take-home message, the bio core programs have no deadlines. Submit your project when it's ready. There are multiple funding mechanisms to support interdisciplinary research, research at different career stages, infrastructure, education and outreach, and especially broadening participation in STEM. It always helps to reach out to the program officer to discuss your ideas. It's helpful to send a one-page summary of your research plans and broader impacts as fodder for a good, productive conversation. Finally, we're always in need of your expertise, whether that's as an ad hoc reviewer on an advisory panel, as a rotating program officer, or even as a rotating division director. If you're interested in learning more, reach out. We'd be happy to tell you about it. And now we're ready for questions and answers. And I'll just remind you to post your questions to the Q&A, and we'll take this time to introduce the rest of my colleagues from bio. Thank you.
Okay, all right, wonderful. Thank you so much. That was a really wonderful presentation. So, and I think, Colette, you said you wanted to introduce your colleagues?
Yes, please. Why don't you go ahead, Jeremy?
Greetings, everyone. This is Jeremy Wojak, a program director in population and community ecology in the Division of Environmental Biology.
And Bianca?
Hello, everyone. I'm Bianca Garner, a program director in the Systems and Synthetic Biology cluster in the Division of Molecular and Cellular Biosciences.
And finally, Matt.
Hi, everyone. Matt Herron. I'm in the Division of Biological Infrastructure. I've worked in quite a few different programs there, including the capacity program, the innovation program, the major research instrumentation program, and the postdoc fellowship program.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, we got the A team here today. So, and we've got lots of questions that have come in. So let's get right to it. First one is for proposals on statistical and computational methods for analyzing biological data. Which division should that person submit to?
So that could be a good fit for a couple of the programmatic areas in the innovation program that Colette talked about, either the bioinformatics programmatic area or the research methods programmatic area, depending on the details of the proposal. As Colette said, I think it would be a really good idea for you to email a program officer in one of those programmatic areas. There's actually email aliases on the website for both of those programmatic areas. And if you tell them what you have in mind, they'll be able to guide you as far as which one is the most appropriate. I'll put the link to that program in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Matt. Next are the research infrastructure grants under DBI submitted as research grants versus infrastructure grants?
So they have the format of a research grant, although the content could be very different from what you might normally think of as a research proposal. The really important thing here is to carefully read the solicitation. This is key for any NSF proposal, really, and make sure that you're giving all the information that the solicitation specifies you need to provide. Everything will be evaluated for intellectual merit and broader impacts, but a lot of these things also have solicitation-specific criteria, and they'll guide you as to the format and the additional information that you might need.
Okay, great. All right, let's see here. How about basic biomedical research that does not include animals? Does bio support such research?
So, as I said, we fundamentally are looking for all of our projects to be motivated from the point of view of fundamental science. Many projects have potential biomedical broader impacts, and there is nothing wrong with highlighting those in your project description. But the fundamental motivation must be a basic science motivation, regardless of whether you're involving animals in the study or not.
Okay, all right, great. So the next question has to do with rolling deadlines. And so for rolling or ongoing deadline solicitations, some POs have been telling PIs to submit by a certain time to get a better chance at getting funded. And so this person is wondering if there's a resource that would show peak times to submit to those funding opportunities.
All right, I'm going to jump in on this one.
Anybody going to take that?
Fundamentally, that is just simply incorrect. It's possible that a program director, was intending to communicate that there was an opportunity for to participate in a panel that is coming up, but our funding probabilities across the year are not variable. They are even, and that is a major tenet of the whole approach we've taken to the no deadline. So there is no best time. You should submit your best proposal.
Got it. Great. Okay. So with this has to do with integrative projects. So are integrative projects with interdisciplinary aspects expected to remain within the scope of bio, or are projects integrated with other fields, i.e. social sciences, also relevant to those programs?
So I can speak to part of that question. It may depend on the particular program you're talking about. I know that in the Integrative Research and Biology program, it's perfectly fine to incorporate subject matter that's outside of biology, as long as you're integrating across subfields within biology. I suspect that it's a similar situation for other integrative programs as well. NSF is generally supportive of integrative research across, both subdisciplinary and disciplinary boundaries.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you for that. Okay, so there's a couple of these two questions are kind of related. So are foreign PhDs eligible to apply for the NSF postdoc fellowship? And then the follow-on, another question came in that will fellowships for graduate students or postdocs become open to international students studying in the US? So I think I just answered the first one, but anyway, go ahead, sorry.
So yeah, the PRFB program at least is limited to US citizens, nationals, and permanent residents. And we have no indication that that's likely to change anytime soon.
Okay, all right. Somebody had a question about BRC Bio, and if that's only applicable to faculty in the biology department, or is it faculty in other departments working on biophysical or biochemistry areas? Can they also apply?
So I will jump in on this one. It is open to faculty in any department as long as the research is associated with a fundamental biological question. So it has to be research that's supported by one of the 4 areas within the bio directorate.
Okay, all right. And kind of a related question, how many proposals is BRC Bio receiving, and what is the funding rate?
So I'll start and then I'll pass it off to Jeremy. So traditionally, NSF does not present funding rate components, but what we can tell you is that it is a robust program with more than 100 proposals submitted annually.
Okay, all right. And actually, I see here there's one other one about the BRC. So they're saying with BRC moving to only a June window, how is in their first 3 years eligibility interpreted as a June deadline falls between academic years? Is it they haven't started their 4th year?
So as long as the person has not started the 4th year, they are still eligible. So let's say that the start of their 4th year is August 2023, then in June, they are still eligible.
Okay, all right, great. Next one is it possible to write into a research proposal that your broader impacts will involve BioRETS program or the RAMP program, but that it depends on, if you get funded, like if it's the research is funded, would that increase your chances of getting a bio RETS or RAMP funding?
Perhaps I can start and others can fill in. I think literally it's possible to write a proposal that has dependencies on other funding. It may be that reviewers or panelists have worries about that dependency. If the project, if that other funding doesn't come through, and there aren't clear contingencies for that, it may not be clear how the project can come to fruition as proposed. And so that may be a risky approach. Others?
Well, I guess I'd add that those activities can be done on a smaller scale so that you could be proposing to initiate some of those activities on a small scale that can be supported within the proposal in question. And of course, getting those things started probably also does help you to be more successful to those other programs.
Okay. All right. Great. Okay. Okay. So next one is that this person has a PhD in public health, epidemiology, and biological terrorism preparedness and response. They are not a faculty member, but would embrace a mentorship through a fellowship. However, they're asking, what would the team recommend?
So the only fellowship we really have for someone with a PhD is the postdoctoral research fellowships in biology. Depending on the details of your research, you might be able to apply for that. And your eligibility for that is not dependent on having a faculty position or really on having any position. It's limited to 15 months in a position that requires a PhD. In other words, you can't have had a position requiring a PhD for more than 15 months and still be eligible, 15 full-time months. If you have some weird situation where you're over 15 months, but you were working part-time for part of that, then let somebody, email the PRFB program and ask them if you'd be eligible. Otherwise, it's going to be a question, given your background, it's going to depend on what your research question is, whether it's too biomedical, given the constraints on that Colette talked about earlier. Again, I would email the PRFB program and ask that, give them a one-pager, just like Colette suggested. Let them figure out whether your research is within what NSF is willing to fund or consider funding.
Okay. Great, thank you. This person is asking if it's okay to include a collaborator from a dental school, as long as they justify that in the proposal. No salary would be requested for that person, but apparently they do have access to some equipment that might be useful.
So it is acceptable to collaborate with people from dental schools or medical schools, but you must really clearly articulate why you need this collaborator and the benefits to the project.
Okay, great. Let's see, what's the next one here? We got these are all great questions that people are asking. So, and I'm glad that we have all of you here to to answer them. So this person is asking if there's any dedicated program for research grants, not training grants, but research grants for faculty members from Hispanic serving institutes.
In bio, I do not believe we have any that are dedicated solely to Hispanic serving institutions. On the other hand, supporting minority serving institutions of all sorts is absolutely a priority in the bio directorate.
I'll just add, if I may, that that could fall under the BRC bio. It's not dedicated just to HSIs, but if you're an assistant professor within your first 3 years and you're at an HSI that is not an R1 institution, as some HSIs are R1 institutions, then you'd be eligible for BRC bio.
Okay, all right. This is a good one, I think that's generally applicable. Does NSF allow collaboration with foreign researchers?
So I'll start and then anyone can jump in. So yes, that is allowed. But again, there must be a really clear justification of why that partnership is necessary and what makes it unique.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's see here.
There are also, for some programs, there are official memoranda of understanding between particular countries. So for example, the UK and Brazil, China have, for certain solicitations, pathways for to facilitate those kinds of collaborations.
Great. Okay, thank you. Are there additional mechanisms for PUIs in addition to the BRC bio mechanism?
So there's the RUI mechanism, which is the research at an undergraduate institution. And it is very similar to just a core solicitation. The differences are that the institution must provide an impact statement, sort of saying, not an impact statement, an eligibility statement, indicating that they are an undergraduate institution. And those are accepted at any time on the rolling basis.
It's also true that bio and geo are participating in an expansion of the mid-career advancement program, which opens that opportunity to full professors at PUIs to use that mechanism to support a sabbatical-like activity to get research going in a new direction.
Okay, great. All right. If a project itself addresses broader impact, how do they address that in the broader impact section by summarizing the ways, in which it has broader impacts? For example, if it's a project at a PUI that trains undergraduate students in research. That's a stumper. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I understand the question, I think even if some of the broader impacts seem self-evident, right? The project plan includes working with undergrads in research projects or training underrepresented students. The proposal should certainly delineate those and explain the project plan and the expected benefits and the potential to assess the realization of those broader impacts. And so even if it seems self-evident, lay out the case for why this is a great plan and these are good activities.
Okay, all right. Let's see here. Okay, I am considering applying for a career grant, not me. This is the person. That would be a problem. That would be a conflict of interest. Anyway, but this person is considering applying for a career grant, but they're submitting their tenure package next week. So do the number of years as a non-tenured faculty change the chance of funding? In other words, should they put their efforts into a core program instead?
So just first to acknowledge you are still eligible in this year when you are being considered for tenure. And it's entirely up to you which avenue to go. I always advise people, if they have a vision for how their teaching and research are integrated and feedback to one another and are acting in a very synergistic way, then it's worthwhile to put in that career proposal. I tend to find that develops over time. So faculty that are a little further on in their assistant professorship do on average do better. But that's entirely to do with your own plans.
Okay, all right. And Matt, I think you had this question you wanted to answer live. So under which technical area would improving and expanding radio frequency based imaging software best fit? a mix of mathematical, physical, and life sciences?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, that's a tough question. It's definitely one I would write up a one-pager and email it to some program officers, because that could be another directorate entirely. That could be engineering, for example. It could also be the innovation program in DBI under the instrumentation programmatic area. But I would definitely want to get a program officer's opinion on your specific project before submitting that.
Okay, all right, great. And I think we have time for just one more. So somebody's asking, what is the page limit for intellectual merit and broader impact? And what should be clarified and focused in each?
So I'll start and everyone can jump in. So the page limit, so it depends on if you're looking at a specific solicitation or a core program. So for example, BRC Bio has a 6-page page limit. In those 6 pages, you've got to talk about the intellectual merit, which is the scientific component, and then that broader impacts component, which is the societal benefit. If you're looking at some of the core programs, the page limit is 15. So you got a lot more space to put in intellectual merit and background information, but we don't have a set specific number for 6 pages must be intellectual merit and 6 pages must be broader impact. We leave that up to the PIs to determine what they need to tell their story.
Okay, all right. And I am going to take just one more question, because it does seem to be a pressing one. So how can, this person is asking, how can they address issues of diversity and inclusion if they are in a state that prohibits such language in our programming?
So NSF cannot provide advice or guidance on state law. NSF continues to have a commitment to engaging everyone in STEM. We will continue to evaluate all our proposals on broader impacts and intellectual merit. We continue to make the missing millions that Colette mentioned a core priority, but NSF cannot interpret state laws. If you're a principal investigator, you should check with your institution's legal counsel or your sponsored research office on this question.
Okay, all right, fantastic. I think, yeah, thank you. That definitely is a question on a lot of people's minds now. So thank you for that answer. Okay, all right. Well, this has just been great, and you all have done an amazing job with answering all these questions that have come in. I think we got to pretty much all of them. So thank you very much to the presenter and to all your colleagues that joined you today for an informative presentation. And thank you very much for joining us, and take care, and everybody have a wonderful day.